Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Yelders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Buenas, this is Cisco Gallardo with the Healing Generations podcast, Yelders edition, from the National Compadres Network. So I want to say welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming back, for tuning in, for checking it out. I want to ask all the relatives, like I always do, if you're a listener of the podcast, please share, write a review, either on Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcast. If you leave a review, it helps people find it. Just help us out in that way. And again, if maybe you have a story lead or somebody you think we should interview, hit us up. You can go to nationalcompadres.org and you can find my email there and just send us a little email. Let me know what's up. I'll be happy to check it out to see if they were a good fit for our podcast. I have a little bit of a cough, so my voice is kind of froggy, but I'll do my best to keep it under control. So before we get started, we always want to call in the ancestors, We want to recognize the four directions. We want to ask our elders for permission, or ancestors. So let's start out. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to take a deep breath. Wherever you are, If you could close your eyes, I want you to think about the direction of the east, the direction of the men, all the men in our lives, the good, the bad. But we want to think about our grandfathers. We want to think about our dads. We want to think about our tios, our hood dads and our hood tios too, those that support us. Maybe the veteranos, the mentors in our life, the father figures in our life, our coaches, those men who help guide us. We also want to think about our cousins, our brothers, our sons. We want to think about our nephews. We want to think about our homies. We want to think about all the men in our lives, all the things that they go through. And we want to lift them up in a good way. We want to think about them, bring them into the conversation. And then I want you to move to your left. As you move, kind of walking around, you kind of start looking towards that west direction. But in between there, we want to think about our LGBTQ relatives, all the things that they go through, all the things that they face. We want to think about them, the blessings that they bring, the voices that they bring, the art that they bring, all of what they bring. And as we face this west direction, we think about our grandmothers, our mothers, our tias, our ninas. We want to think about all of them, our hood moms, our hood tias. We want to think about our nieces and our sisters and our homegirls and our partners and all that. We want to think about them. All the women in our life. All the little girls in our life, we want to think about them, all the blessings that they bring, and also all the traumas that they carry as well. We want to bring that voice here with us and think about them, the influence they have on us, the influence they have on our children and our community. Then you turn left again until we face that north direction, our ancestors, all those that came before us, those that prayed for us, those that talked about us. Way before we were even here, they were already thinking about us. We want to honor them, what they struggled for, what they survived, and what they thrived on too. We want to think about them in that way. And also we want to think about our elders, If you got grandparents, you have elderly neighbors, mentors that were in your life and they're elderly now. Think about them. Think about things that they have to go through. If you have the ability, check upon them. Make sure they're okay, All the things that they did on our behalf, we want to honor them in a good way. And then we move to our left again turning until we hit that south direction. And there's that spectrum from the very oldest all the way down to those that are not even born yet. So in the south, we think of all the children, from the newborns to the toddlers to the elementary school to that middle school to high school and college and beyond. We think about those young people, all the hopes and dreams that they bring to us. When we look at their smiles, and their laughter, we think about all the beauty that they bring, And also we think about the tears from the trauma that they might see. We want to wipe those tears away for them in a good way and think about all the good things we want for them. And then at the same time, I want you to just look up at the sky and think of the sun, Tonantiu, the beauty that the sun brings us, the light, the heat, the hope that the sun brings. When we wake up in the morning, we're lucky enough to catch a sunrise. Sometimes I don't even really think about it until I witness it. Then I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And then I want you to touch the earth and think about Tonantzin, the beauty of Mother Earth, all the beautiful things, the water that comes from the earth, the plants, the animals. Like our relatives say, they say all my relations, our Lakota and various nations over there talk about that, how important it is to honor our Mother Earth, and do our best to take care of her. Do our best to make decisions, not only for ourselves, but for our family, our community, our business, to do our part, making sure we're recycling, throwing things away, doing what we can to slow down climate change, to advocate for it and fight for it. And then I want you to think of in the center, whatever you believe, even if you don't believe in anything, I want you to think about just the creation of life, the miracle of life, how precious it is, and how a lot of times we also take it for granted. I want you to think about life in general and, what we're doing our best to heal from, enjoy. That's what life's about, enjoying it, not just surviving, but enjoying it and thriving in a good way, good healing, balanced way. So with that, relatives, I want you to take a deep breath. Breathe it out slow. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for, just taking that time out to listen. It's important. So today, as we move forward, we're going to talk again more about healing. I have a brother here with me today. I've been trying to talk him into being a guest for a while, but he finally gave in. That's what persistence does. And I'm really happy to have him here. He has a beautiful family, but he's been through some things. And I think he has a story that a lot of people can learn from. So with that, I want to introduce my brother Danny. I'll let him introduce properly, however he likes. But please tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing right now, and a little bit about your story, up to this point in life.
Good afternoon, everybody. Cisco, thank you for having me today. I feel blessed today. I feel so much gratitude, and I'm a grandson, I'm a son, I'm a father, and overall I'm just a community member. Boyle Heights, that's the place I really call home. That's where I grew up, and I lived in the East Coast with my dad before, but I would travel here in the summertime after school, and yeah, Boyle Heights always welcome me. Via Boyle Heights, I was born in El Salvador, Cuscatlan. My people come from the region of the Lenca people. That means the Commonwealth of the people. And I just want to say, Kinam Sinu, may the sun shine upon you and whoever's listening. Palabra.
So Danny, tell us a little bit, what were the lessons that you learned from your culture, from your familia, from your life experiences along the way that helped you in your healing and your development as a person?
Healing never stops. There's always a beginning to it. But, you know,
So tell us about the beginning.
I'm going to take you back to like 1992. I arrived here because of conflict, of civil war in El Salvador. I'm thankful to my grandmother for saving my life. You know, a lot of the times we had to leave town in order for us to get away from the conflict. And we were returned to the islands. A lot of the times we didn't know why we had to like leave town. But the bullets were just raining everywhere. And so my grandma, my mom decided like, you know, you have to go because it's not safe. So I felt like I was being, my roots were taken out and I couldn't be in the place that I wanted to be. And you know, that was my motherland. When my sisters were taken first, I felt mad. I felt lonely. I felt like somebody purposely separated me from my family. But it wasn't until 2 years later that I was able to see my sisters when I arrived in the U.S. And my first experience was in an immigration center in New York. And I think that's where the conflict comes with me and authority. Because what I remember was that I had to assimilate to something that I was brought in and I didn't have a choice. And so, you know, I was mad at my dad for, you know, bringing me here and not being able to see him for like about a month and a half. Mm. And I was at that time, I think I was like 11, 10. And I felt more lonely because my sisters now, you know, they're in the West Coast, I'm in the East Coast. Mm. And all I'm trying to do is just trying to get to them. So the 4-hour differences, right? I would, you know, call them early at 8 in the morning. And here in the West Coast, it was like 5 or 6. And they were like, what are you doing? You're waking us up. But all I wanted to do is just hear their voices. Mm-hmm. And, you know, fast forward a couple of years later, you know, my dad got remarried and I had to go back to my mom, and she lived in El Salvador. And so I spent the early years of the 90s for about, I want to say like a year and a half in El Salvador to see that the people that were being deported, and it was creating, it was like carnage, because now they were using stuff that it was left behind from the war. And so I experienced, you know, like grenades, explosions, all kinds of different stuff. And I remember that week when my dad, you know, dropped me off and, you know, we were just chilling outside and there's these guys, you know, like over there, they carry these big machetes. Mm. And a lot of them are farm workers, but we have, you know, the sea nearby. So a lot of fishermen and farm workers. And so they come in, you know, right in front of his house. There's like a billiards, you know, everybody plays pool. Mm-hmm. And then these two guys come out and start slashing themselves. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I'm like, you know, I don't want to stay here. You're not going to leave me here, right? And he goes, you know, I don't think it's going to work out with your stepmom. This is a decision that, you know, we have to make for, you know, for us. And so I felt like, you know, like this fool didn't even want me no more. And, you know, my mom's sister, she was like, oh, we can't leave him over here. So I waited for a year and a half till I got to LA and reunited with my sisters. And that was pretty cool because, you know, I lived in a gated community, which was the projects in you know, Aliso Village or Boyle Heights. And then I felt like, you know, I'm home. I didn't have to go to the store because the ladies had, you know, like a little tiendita outside of their house. And then the people would come in and They would bring a van full of like pan dulce. And then you have the pizza man, carrying like pizza. And so it was pretty fun growing up there. The only thing in the weekends, it was, you have to dodge bullets because you had like, 4 different neighborhoods nearby. And I lived in the area what's called the Clay Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And it was puro desmadre. But I was caught up in a different area of LA, traveling from school from the east side to the west side because I couldn't go, to my local high school. And, that became an adventure, every day going from one neighborhood to another. But I got to say, I think, the reason why I really enjoy Father Greg Boyle was because he never gave up on me.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I was a cagapalo, a mocoso, that would like run around the neighborhood and the tendederos, he caught me one time. I had mud on both hands. And I would go like walk around the tendederos and just get everything dirty because, the ladies would come and they say, oh, well, we seen your nephew down the street. And then my tia would be like, man, like, why do these people come and tell me stuff about you? You need to behave. So my goal was to make sure that they never come back knocking on my door. So I kept them busy with doing laundry and stuff. And then Father Greg caught me one time and he was like, come here. And so at the time, he created misas en el barrio.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would gather like different families and different people, from the project to have a service in the projects because, a lot of people couldn't go to the church because of fear of retaliation from walking from one side to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, the 90s were different in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed to be able to have so many different friends from so many different communities. But, I got in high school, in the beginning of high school, I got caught up with the gang life. My godfather used to own a little store in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And he happened to, know some of the friends that, I got to know because of him. And one of them, he ended up being one of my schoolmates. So I would pass through the neighborhood. We'll take the bus to school and, we would just travel a lot. For me, it was, sports kept me busy.
Mm-hmm.
I used to play baseball. I used to play football, in the winter football, baseball in the spring. And so having my parents and everybody so far away, I felt like, nobody would ever show up, but my homies would show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they were supportive in a way until I got off of doing my extracurricular activities. So, we'll go back to the neighborhood and, do what we used to do. And for me, it wasn't like a vice. I never had like the urges of doing like hardcore drugs. I seen my homies, like one of them, passed away because he was shooting up and he was driving. So I was like, man, I don't really want to do that, But my thing has always been like, because of poverty in my homeland and poverty in Boyle Heights, well, we were gifted with the way of hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the first thing was how my grandmother, she would make atol. And so I took those expertise and took that to the streets. And, eventually, I learned how to cook.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always thought that that was the way out because I used to see, like my older friends and my older homies that, they had, the flashy stuff. So I got caught up on that. Like I wanted that lifestyle, the money, the cars and all that. I wanted it. I ended up paying the price by being incarcerated, by taken away from the community that I was part of, by even, getting lost in the system.
So at what point was your turning point? Like at what point did you start to say, maybe this isn't the road I want to go down? Did they try to convince you of it? Is there something like that happened that kind of made you think about it?
When they transferred me from juvenile hall to the county jail when I turned 18, I went from like 18 to like 21. I remember being in in solitary confinement in Wayside. And then it always happened like in the holidays. Like I missed most of like the family functions. And that was the reason why I was mad when I was young, because I couldn't be with my family. And now that I'm getting older, I'm caged up, I'm locked up, and I don't get to see my family because I put myself in these positions. And so I asked myself, like, man, you've been here, 3 years in a row. Are the same things are going to happen the next 3 years? And so I wanted to prime myself to be like, the very first thing they do when they release you, they tell you, hey, make sure you don't come back to this hotel. There's a lot of vacancy, but there's also overtime for us. And we're thankful for that. And I was like, wait a minute. I asked him, so you mean to tell me like, you guys really make money out of like people transitioning from here to, out there? He goes, it's big money, especially on transportation, they said. And I was like, nah, I'm going to stick to what my grandparents taught me. And for me, it was art, like the passion of food. That's the way I got to express myself. And so I think in 2001, I went back to Homeboy Industries, and Father Greg, he was like, I have a special project with LA Trade Tech. Maybe you could benefit from this. So I ended up taking a professional baking at Trade Tech. And so, with some of the homies from the neighborhood where I grew up, some of them went to school, and it was a puro desmadre, like just imagine homies on lectures, and then they would have like little boombox, and sometimes the chef would get mad, and I started sitting in front because I couldn't hear. And so I started taking a lot of notes, because some of these methods and the language in the kitchen is very, worldwide. When it comes to like putting, things together, you have to have a certain name for it. But that wasn't taught to me by my grandma. She just would be like, do it this way, just cut it up. And she didn't have a name for it. But now in school, they had, julienne and all these kind of things.
You mean the method of cutting or the ingredients?
It's the method of putting everything together. Just following the recipe. A lot of people, I could look at a recipe and I could take a mental picture of it, and then I have it. But some people like to read it, take their time and go slow with it. For me, it's an expression. It's like taking, like somebody's vehicle and, just beautifying it. The way that, an old car and a lowrider, And then you have something beautiful because you put your own touch to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that, that was fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only thing I didn't do was go to France. I couldn't make it all the way over there.
Mm-hmm.
But my course had that, you had the privilege of going for 2 weeks to France and cooking with, professionals over there. And I didn't do that. I couldn't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, at the time, like $4,000. I couldn't come up with $4,000 for
Did you know anybody that did go?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my Cuban brother, Willie, he's still, traveling the world, because he really like, took that with him. So going to school, I worked in different places, and in 2015, I was working for USC. I was a professional cook there. And on my way there, I got ran over by 2 cars.
What?
Yeah, I almost amputated my ankle, my left ankle. And I was loving it. I was home. I didn't have to like travel to work. And here it is, like everything changed. My life. I had barely had my daughter. We had barely bought a house. It was just like the wrong time for everything. And I have to give it to my wife for holding it down for those 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she never gave up, and that took a lot from me, because when I met her like 3 months after my grandma passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she came in my life, I was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
My heart was heavy. My only love, left the world, and I felt like I didn't have nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And so here comes my wife and my life, and she filled that emptiness real quick. And my daughter, that's my fuel. That's the reason why I get up every morning at 5:30. I gotta get her, her breakfast, her lunch. Make sure that she likes, queso fresco in her sandwich. She doesn't like the yellow one or anything else. But she goes, Dad, I really like that cheese. But I think that's the prize and life that I really enjoy. My family, and they have been a big force for me to heal.
Mm-hmm.
These ways that we're on, this road that we're on, it wasn't accessible to me because I was caught up in a culture that wasn't even mine, in a place that I'm still a guest here.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't visited my land since the last time I left. And I almost feel like I'm just like a traveler in time that lived, already like 3 lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen so much in the world, from New York to Hawaii. It has taught me a lot about different communities. I also spent a little bit of time in Hawaii, and that allowed me to connect to my own ways, my culture. They respect family, land, and water so much, and all those 3 things are so important to them.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in that little island. I grew up in the Pacific Ocean in Central America, but I never saw it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I really love nature today.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, and I ended up in fire camp, and I got lost in the system supposedly for like 2 years. But that's one of the reasons why I love Sequoia. My first time being in Sequoia was trying to put fires out.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I came back to my community, I wanted to turn on fires.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to save my community.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be part of my community. There is so much potential in Los Angeles, but my community is they have so much gold hidden. They have so much treasure hidden
Mm-hmm.
that Boyle Heights is what has made me the man that I am today.
So how did you get from right there, right where you're doing this fire camp, to kind of where you are right now? I mean, you survived. You had that accident. You were down for a number of years. I mean, how did you put yourself together after that, and how did that lead to where you're at right now? And what are you doing right now? And what are the impacts that you're trying to do? And what kind of keeps you going?
I think racism is that fire under my feet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, in 2009, my grandma passed away, and the train came down to Boyle Heights. So everything, gentrification hit us out of nowhere, and I couldn't afford it anymore. I had to move to the suburbs in 2017. I really was never into like politics.
Mm-hmm.
I never in the neighborhood, we don't even care about who the president is because, it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
The same issues in different places, traveling now, going to different cities and different neighborhoods and getting to know different people from, different areas just in California.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much problems there. Poverty is something I believe that is controlled because they don't want us, they don't want us to learn. And so moving to the suburbs taught me something new, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I never experienced racism. And my community where I live, the only reason why I moved over there because my grandma is buried there.
Mm. You want to be close to your grandma.
And so to me, that's my roots.
Yeah.
That is what drove me to that area.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not know that these areas are infested with old timers that had practiced from, 30 years ago. And they were basically warning me about, if it was 30 years ago, once the lights go off, you wouldn't be able to walk around here. Boy. That's what the experience to me was. I got out of like dodging bullets and, dealing with law enforcement. But now I'm dealing with like retired law enforcement
Mm-hmm.
that's, from before my times, that they don't want you to, come to their neighborhood and lower their value or their property value.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started experiencing some like out of this world type of thing where they were trying to box me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes one person that really made a difference till this day in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And you know him. He's been on your show, and that's Joseph Escamilla.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, I met my brother in Jarvis and Lancaster in juvenile detention right before going into those fire camps. And we got to know each other. We did a little bit of time, but then I had to, be transferred somewhere else. And fast forward, 10 years, and here he comes in my life again at Homeboy Industries. While I'm working at Homeboy Industries, I really, really get to know him.
Mm-hmm.
and we start to spend time. You know, his journey, I seen it from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But he had this nice truck that had like sounds, and I love music.
Mm-hmm.
So I never judged him for who he is or who he was. But I really liked the sounds in his car. So, you know, my thing was like, Joe, whatever's, you know, like, I want to have a conversation with you, but, you know, can you give me a ride? But, you know, put the CD in. And that was one of the things that I really enjoy about my brother Joe, that, you know, he didn't care. He didn't, you know, he didn't judge me and I didn't judge him. And we told each other the truth. You know, we were clear with each other. And I think that was one of the things that really attracted, you know, our friendship, that we were honest with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so he told me, like, one time he came to my house and he goes like, well, what the fuck are you going to do? Are you going to be right here sitting and, you know, letting all these issues just eat you up? Or are you going to do something about it?
Mm-hmm.
That got stuck in my head, bro. Like, yeah, you know, it's all like scare tactics. And I was like, man, you've been through a lot more. You know, I survived Rampart.
Yeah.
And, you know, those really, like, you know, ass whoopings that we used to take.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, I started thinking, like, you wanted to burn out fires in your neighborhood. You know, you wanted to make something better out of your neighborhood. What can you do now? You know, like, this is like 5-6 years ago. You have the time, you have the ability. I wasn't working. I was going through, like, you know, different surgeries like every 6 months. So he goes, you know, there's a course you could take for mental health, he told me.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just take it together? And here comes this man in my class that he introduced me to, and his name is Armando. And we just started like talking to each other so much that, you know, we will go through from 9 to 12:30 in class,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll take a lunch break. And then from 1 o'clock to like 2:30, you know, part of the class.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll still talk after class, you know, basically getting to know each other. And so Armando and me, we became really, you know, he was like my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had a lot of wisdom, and, you know, he really paid attention to what I was trying to tell him. You know, like, he mentioned that, you know, San Gabriel Valley wasn't always welcoming to the Chicano community.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been through some, you know, issues like that. But he goes, you know, nephew, he goes, you just gotta, like, keep going. You have something special that doesn't really belong to you. You have to share it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
From that point on, bro, like, I got recharged.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was able to release all that anger that I was going through. And then it just happened to be that my dog bits my neighbor. And it's the guy that really has made my life difficult for the last, you know, 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And economically, they put me under stress, bro.
Yeah.
Because I never had dealt with, like, lawsuits or anything like that.
Racism like that, targeted.
Yeah. Yeah, like, my house all of a sudden was getting, like, the pipes outside that will break.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the sprinklers, my AC unit, like, something will come up. And I didn't understand it. And it was like an attack of my economy. Knowing that I wasn't working at the time, I was just receiving, like, a little bit of help. And the system that is set up where, you know, you feel the push out, you're not being welcome, and it felt like I didn't belong. And so, fast forward to like 2019, 2020, people started selling their houses. And so Raza started moving in. It was me and a black family that was in that block. Now you have like, 4 new families. There's a Vietnamese family. There's a Japanese family down the street. There's now like 2 black families. And so you could see the change. It's just that change is not welcome. And yeah, that was that fire that got me to the nonprofit world. Joseph, he invited me to be part of his nonprofit, the Action Project. And I didn't know anything about it. All I knew in life was just how to cook. That was my bread and butter all my life. And today I'm just grateful and thankful to be able to just listen to the youth and how they're suffering. And, in my times, Hulk Hogan or David Hasselhoff and I didn't, that's all we used to have in TV.
Yeah.
I didn't relate to these guys. And so now when I walk into spaces and you see those faces of the youth and they see me, they automatically, get closer to me. But I just want to be able to hear their voices. I want to be able to be the voices of the immigrant, the ones that, can't speak English. I want to be able to, translate whenever the situation calls upon me. Just recently, I was at the health department and there was this older man. He has lost his permits. And, I was there because I'm doing some research as, for how to, put together a co-op. And I was sitting waiting, and the person there dealing with it was kind of being a jerk. And so I stepped up and I told him I could translate for you if it's better. He goes, yeah, if you could help me out. And I was like, if I help you out, you got to help this man out. Because it's going to come back to you maybe fivefold. But, let's be fair.
Yeah, you got to teach that reciprocity. If you're going to get something, it's good to give something away too.
Yeah, because all they want to do is push it aside.
Yeah.
And from what I saw, it was like, the frustration on his face. I don't understand you. No hablo español and stuff like that. So I told him, if I could help you, make sure you help him. And so that is the idea I live with today. Being part of so many different networks allows me to be able to reach and give out resources that we didn't even have before.
So what is the Action Project planning to do?
The Action Project it's cultural healing, bro. It's substance abuse resourcing. It's welcome home for those that are being released from incarceration. But it's also a place of resources. I'm thankful right now that, this summer I took this conservation class in West LA. And it has taught me that, conserving land doesn't only apply to wildlife. It helps our community.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I didn't understand why paperwork is a weapon until an elder told me, that's the weapon that most of the Indians have never been able to defend themselves.
Definitely.
And so I really want to preserve my community, keep it safe. Like I said, I love nature, bro. Like for me and the Action Project has been getting these youth involved in hikes, getting them outdoors. Just recently, Joseph introduced me to these great men, and they're doing good work in South Central, and they're mentors. And I never thought I'll be a mentor myself.
Mm-hmm.
But you hear different stories from different people, and you relate to them.
Yeah.
And all I could see is myself in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the Action Project really is a partner of all these different organizations working together to make a better place in any neighborhood, and just providing a safe space for kids that are, artistic, writers, just creative.
Mm-hmm.
I think, without imagination, there's no, construction of anything. And so we want to allow the kids or the youth that are part of the Action Project to use their imagination, that, the world is bigger than the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Once I started traveling and seeing different places, it opened my mind, and I was able to experience different things in life. Today, our summer trips are like clockwork. We have to do that, like for my family. My friends, family in high school took me to Yosemite for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a wild experience because I never experienced anything like it, where families come together, they sit around the fire. There's a campsite only for food. There's a campsite for adults, mm-hmm. and then a campsite for the youth. And mm-hmm. that was the one that was the loudest and the one that stayed up the late, mm-hmm. And then the spirit in those places where there was relatives before, and the story of all this that has been taken away, I felt connected to it because mm-hmm. I felt the same way that I was, taken away from, the place that seen me born.
Mm-hmm.
And I just fell in love with it. And today is our ritual to go to the woods, to the river, to a lake in the summer. And I think the trips are getting bigger, bro. Like everybody from friends to family, this summer we gather at Kern River.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had so many people come from different areas, and we all met there. And I never been there. But the water that runs through there, the weather was different because in the middle of the night it started raining.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so close to like Death Valley that I didn't know we had monsoon weather.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, you get close to the desert, you have rain. And I was like, really?
That's like a microclimate next to the desert. It creates its own climate.
I couldn't believe it myself. Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's part of that, returning back to nature teaches you a lot of things, They say it grounds you. You kind of witness things. It's kind of like witnessing creation in a lot of ways, because it's just things are constantly evolving, and a lot of people don't, take the time to really see it. You know what I mean? And because we're so busy, and then in the city, you just feel disconnected from nature in that way. Even though we have open spaces here, we don't necessarily utilize them the best way we can,
We don't. I think the beauty of being here in Los Angeles is that we take everything for granted.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy when I take my daughter out to nature, because then she has so many questions,
Mm-hmm.
and I just love spending time with her. I really care about, whoever I take out to nature, and we're in that space. It really means a lot to me,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much connection to our natural ways. And just recently she has been interested in the old teachings and the old ways, and she has a lot of questions. I felt happy today. Today is my grandma's 100th birthday, if she was alive.
Wow.
And today, this morning, I spent it at the cemetery with my family. And my tia, she asked me, like, do you think that in December maybe I could take your daughter to meet your mom to El Salvador?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you'll do that?
Mm.
And she was like, yeah, like, there's so much going on during the time before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
They celebrate the seasons over there.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to experience that will be like me experiencing as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And to meet her grandma is gonna be like so special, because all they do is in the phone and the video calls. She uses a translator to talk to my mom, but they communicate with each other.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, so today that's how I felt all day. Like, I feel blessed,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel thankful that my grandma, has done and continues to do everything that she's doing from above, and she keeps sending me blessings every day, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, the connection between your grandparents, especially your grandma, is beautiful, And, I wanted to say to you, Danny, is I really appreciate your cariño, because, obviously you've been through a lot in life, but you still see the good, in the food and the blessing of nourishing other people, which is important. You know what I mean? I mean, that's one of the best things, right? You cook something and you see people they're all quiet, just eating, all happy. Then hey, I did something good. You know what I mean? And I'm really appreciative of you and Joseph doing your work, doing your thing. There's still so many possibilities that we could still harness. I'm looking forward to that. But as the people you come across today, that are listening to this podcast, what advice or counsel would you give them? They're kind of at that tipping point in life where they're not sure what to do. A lot of people, when they're into healing, or when they think about, hey, I need to change my life. And it could be like they're not necessarily doing things bad, but they just want more out of life. Some of our relatives are still struggling. They're not sure what they want to do, but I see that for a lot of young people. And especially a lot of young men and young women, like your daughter. What advice would you give them? One is to encourage them to, have a healthy balance in their own life. And then the other one is, how would they even start this journey?
For me, I had to like stop and smell the roses, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we want to grow up so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And once we get to being adults, all we think about is our youth. So I say, take your time. Life it's beautiful when you put it together and you fill it in with what you didn't have, or what you couldn't get from your parents, right? I know today the sacrifice that my parents did to keep me safe. But for me, it wasn't the best choices that I made because I was angry. No, stop being angry.
Mm-hmm.
Stop being mad about, well, really, we don't even have control over. I think worrying doesn't take away the troubles of tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes away the peace of today.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for us to find that balance, we have to have peace in our heart.
Mm-hmm. It robs you of the present. It robs you that you can't enjoy where you're at right this second.
You know why? Because time just flies.
Yeah.
And then when you feel like you're in the right place, you're like, damn, all that nonsense, and I lost all that time.
So as we wrap up, I want you to ask you. It seems like a simple question, but it's not. What does healing mean to you?
Healing to me means to love that 5-year-old. That kid that was robbed of his innocence.
Mm-hmm.
I think healing, that it just doesn't have to do only with me.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I talked to my tia, and she had a restraining order against me. I couldn't go to her house because she felt like, I was a desmadre. But I would always go to see my grandma. When she would leave at 8 in the morning, I'll roll up like around 8:20 after she was there, and my uncle and her, and I would just cook them breakfast, and that was never be afraid. That's another reason why you get robbed from enjoying life. I can't walk afraid. I can't walk on eggshells anymore. Like, my family is gonna enjoy the best life that we could share together. And I think that's where healing starts. It starts from the past, and try to like reconnect all those turns in life where, family had to make decisions. Today, I'm able to talk to my tia, the same one that put a restraining order on me. And we could talk about, her parents, my mom's parents, how a lot of people were missing in their lives. And, in the morning today, she was like, I really enjoyed talking to you for those hours the other day. And I was like, me too, tia. Like, I really want you to know that, you have done so much for me. And sometimes it's hard love, right?
Yeah.
Tough love. It comes from many like family members. But one thing that I will never forget is how my uncle, she would close the door on me, and my uncle would open it for me. And so, may he rest in peace today. He passed away last year. But I miss him. I love him, and he's the reason why I know how to change a spark plug in a car. And so my healing goes with those that have been in my life. The beauty of it, what they have given me, the little bit that they have given me, I take it with me everywhere I go. Those are the blessings that I've connected myself to, and I'm thankful for. I think that's the food to my heart that keeps me, when that Band-Aid ribs, I think about those moments. But those moments tell me, like, keep going.
Yeah.
And it's a never-ending path for healing. But I'm not where I used to be. And I don't think I'm right where I want to be, but I'm in the right path right now.
Oh yeah, you're definitely on the right path. Again, I want to thank you, for sharing a little bit about your life. I'm glad I convinced you to come eventually. I figured if I ask enough, you'll come.
Oh, well, I want to send some shout outs to some of the people that could benefit
definitely.
from it. Red from Tia Chucha and Zacarias from Tia Chucha. They have a good story, and I want you to connect with them. So shout outs to them. Shout outs to all the friends that I made in this path. And I know that when you hear their stories, they're gonna be amazing. You know, they're amazing people. They're good people, and they're people from our community. So yeah, you know, I'm thankful to Joseph Escamilla and the Action Project, and you know, I'm just, you know, thriving right now. I want to be able to help those that really need the help right now.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, I'm glad you shouted those guys out. I plan to connect with them. You know, I've heard good things about them, things that they're doing in the community a lot. And I appreciate that, you know. And I thank you for coming again and bringing and sharing your daughter with us, you know. She makes me smile. You know, we're going to get to that drum at some point. And I love, like, you know, when she sang, we had this little thing together. We were drumming and singing, and she sang. And man, it's beautiful. That's why we do this work, you know, to uplift our young people. Because one day she won't be so young, you know. And then those that, you know, hopefully she's going to be that good role model too. Not hopefully, I know, you know, she's good. And, you know, I appreciate you, both you and your wife, doing the best you can. You know, I appreciate both of you.
Thank you for having me, and anything I could help you know, I'm always a phone call away. And whoever is out there listening, you know, just, I want you to know this is the quote that me and my family always tell each other. And that is never give up. Never give up. You know, if I got out of that dark space and dark room in my life, you can too. So make sure you shine everywhere you go. So I love you, and thank you for this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy this plática. It's, you know, I never thought I was going to be in a podcast.
Well, here you go, man. Love you too, brother. I want good things for you, like I said, always. And again, a shout out to our listeners, those that subscribe and follow and you know, kind of lift up the Healing Generations podcast, you know. And I want to, again, all the other hosts, you know, the young people, Maestra Deb, Maestra Susie, Maestro Jerry, you know, Ariel, you know, all the love, Diego, you know, all the love that's out there, you know, for the podcast hosts and stuff like that. I'm really appreciative. I think we're close to 200 now. We have a lot of episodes, you know, so if you just started listening to us, go back and listen to the different messages, you know, things will be good that way. Again, if you want to learn more about the National Compadres Network, you can go to our website, nationalcompadres.org. And you can, you know, we're on Facebook, all the socials and stuff like that. Real quick, though, Danny, if somebody wanted, where should they go to learn more about anything you're involved in? Is it a website or is it what?
I'm part of 3 great networks: the Action Project.org, Eastside Cafe LA, and Green Arrow. These are the organizations I work closely with. And, you know, tap in, you know, get you know, get in contact. You know, if you have a little bit of extra money, we need it. Donations are always welcome. And yeah, you know, show up. We have a quarterly gathering every 3 months for the Chuco Center for the Welcome Home events. And yeah, you know, like, you could reach out any of those organizations there, and they're doing their thing for restorative justice.
You heard it here first. You know, you want to, you know, support the Action Project, Green Arrow, the Eastside Cafe, LA, you know, support them. They're all doing good work. With that, I want to remind each and every one of our listeners, you know, when it comes to healing, you know, that first step is acknowledging, you know, that you have work to do, you know. I want you to think about that and put some attention to understand what are the lessons there for you. You know, what are those lessons? You know, some of those cargas you don't have to hold. You know, you could put them down. If you want to pick up good things, you have to put something down. I want to remind you of that, you know, and try to integrate those lessons into your life the best way you can, you know. And the main one is do something about it. Some movement. Make a commitment to make a change. You know, that's what healing, That's what healing's all about. You know, it's not about getting it perfect. Again, it's not even being perfect. It's just progress, trying to be a better person. And it takes a little bit at a time to really change your life in a good way. So I just want to share that much with you. Again, the Healing Generations podcast. Till next time, palabra.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.